Understanding your attachment pattern is not the first step in healing it. It's not even close to the most important step. And if that sentence just produced a specific kind of tired, the kind that belongs to someone who has done the understanding work for years and is still here, that's exactly what this video is for. Because here's what almost nobody explains clearly. Attachment healing doesn't happen at one level, it happens at 3. And most people, including the ones who have read everything, done the therapy, named the pattern, have been working almost exclusively at 1. That's not a failure of effort, that's a failure of map. This video is the map. So let's start with the level everyone knows. The first level is the one you already know. Call it the cognitive level, the level of narrative, meaning, and understanding. It's where you go when you read about anxious attachment for the first time and feel the specific relief of recognition. It's where you go in therapy when you trace the pattern back to a specific relationship, a specific dynamic, a specific child who needed something and didn't get it consistently. It's where this video is operating right now. And it is real work. That matters to say clearly, because there's a version of this conversation that implies the cognitive work was wasted, that understanding was always beside the point. That's not true. The cognitive level gives you something irreplaceable. It gives you the narrative that makes the pattern make sense. You didn't become this way randomly. You became this way because a specific environment required it. And understanding that, really understanding it, not just knowing it as a fact, is the beginning of releasing the self-blame that keeps the pattern locked in place. But here's the limit of level 1, stated as plainly as possible. Understanding why your nervous system fires doesn't stop it from firing. You can know, completely and genuinely, that the silence after a text is almost certainly nothing. You can trace that knowledge all the way back to why silence felt dangerous when you were young. You can hold the whole narrative with compassion and precision, and your chest still tightens. Your attention still migrates to the phone. The pattern still runs, not because you haven't understood it enough, but because understanding and activation are operating on different hardware. That's not crazy. That's your wiring doing exactly what it was trained to do. And no amount of additional understanding changes the training. It just watches it run with more clarity. Level 1 is necessary. It is not sufficient. And the reason most people get stuck is that they keep doing more of level 1. More reading, more insight, more naming, hoping that eventually the understanding will reach the place where the pattern actually lives. It won't. Because that place is not upstairs. Which brings us to the second level. The second level is the body. Not as a metaphor, as the literal site where the attachment pattern is stored and runs. When the attachment system activates, when the spiral starts, when the hypervigilance kicks in, when you go quiet and disappear into yourself instead of saying what's actually happening, that sequence doesn't begin in your thoughts. It begins in your nervous system, in structures that formed before language existed for you. In a body that learned very early what closeness feels like when it's also unpredictable, and built a response protocol around that learning. That protocol is physiological. It runs in milliseconds. It has already fired by the time the part of you that understands attachment theory has finished its first sentence. So what does working at level 2 actually mean? It means learning to recognize the activation in the body before it becomes a behavior. The tightening in the upper chest. The way the throat closes slightly, the specific quality of stillness that precedes shutdown. The thing in the back of the shoulders that shows up about 30 seconds before you say, "I'm fine," and mean the opposite. It means developing the capacity to stay in the window, to tolerate the physiological experience of relational uncertainty, without immediately moving to the behavior the nervous system is prescribing, not suppressing the activation, not thinking your way out of it, but staying with it long enough that the nervous system can begin to learn something new. This sensation does not require that action. And here's the thing about somatic work that doesn't get said clearly enough. One breathwork session doesn't update a nervous system that has been running the same protocol for 20 or 30 years. Neither does a week of it. The body learns through repetition the same way it learned the original pattern, through repeated experience, over time, until the new response starts to feel as automatic as the old one did. This is why the viewers who tried somatic work once and concluded it didn't help aren't wrong about their experience. It didn't help yet. Because level 2 isn't a tool you use. It's a practice you build. And even a well-built level 2 practice has a limit of its own. Now we come to the third level, and it's the one that gets the least attention in attachment content. Probably because it's the hardest to package into a self-directed practice. The attachment system was not built in isolation. It was built in relationship, in the specific, repeated, lived experience of reaching toward another person and finding out what happened next, whether they came, whether they stayed, whether the coming and staying was consistent enough that the nervous system could eventually stop scanning for the moment they wouldn't. That is how the original pattern formed. Not through information, not through a child's understanding of their parents' limitations, but through accumulated relational experience that the nervous system organized into a prediction. This is what closeness does, which means the nervous system cannot fully update that prediction in private. This is the thing. This is the part that is genuinely hard to hear, especially for the person who has been doing serious solo work for a long time. Journaling, meditating, practicing regulation, building self-awareness, and wondering why the pattern still runs the moment they're in actual proximity to someone they care about. The answer is not that the solo work was wrong. The answer is that the nervous system learned in relationship, and it can only fully update in relationship. That's not a weakness in you. That is the mechanism. The corrective experience has to be relational because the original wound was relational, not transactional, not someone just being nice to you, but the lived, repeated experience of reaching toward another person and finding them there. Consistently, over time, in a way that the body can begin to believe. That experience can happen in a therapeutic relationship with someone trained to provide it. It can happen in a friendship where the consistency has been long enough and real enough that the nervous system has started to revise its prediction. It can happen in a romantic relationship, but only if that relationship provides enough safety and enough repetition that the body slowly learns to stop bracing. It can even happen in a community, a group of people who are collectively doing the same work, providing each other with the relational raw material the nervous system needs. What it cannot happen through is more understanding alone, or more somatic practice alone. The third level requires another person, and that is not a design flaw in you. That's a design feature of the human nervous system. If what this video just mapped feels like the actual framework you've been missing, the reason the cognitive work produced understanding without change, there's a program in the description that was built around exactly this architecture. Not one level, not two, all three simultaneously in a structured sequence. The link is in the description and in the pinned comment. Now let's talk about what working at all three levels actually looks like. Here's what the integration argument actually means in practice, because the instinct, once you have a three-level framework, is to think about it sequentially. Finish level 1, then move to level 2, then earn access to level 3. That's not how it works. The three levels are not stages. They're simultaneous and mutually reinforcing. Understanding what happened to you. Level 1 makes the somatic work less frightening, because when the body activates, you have a narrative for why, and that narrative reduces the secondary shame spiral. The somatic work level 2 makes the relational work possible, because you can't stay present in a corrective relational experience if your nervous system is overwhelmed. The regulation capacity gives you the window to actually receive what's being offered. And the relational experience, level 3, updates the nervous system's fundamental prediction in a way that no private practice ever fully can, which then makes the somatic regulation easier, because the body is slowly learning that the threat it was built to anticipate is no longer the baseline. They feed each other, which also means you don't have to start from scratch. The cognitive work you've already done is level 1. It's real, and it stays. The question is not, do I throw out what I've built? The question is, what level has been missing? For most people consuming content like this, the answer is level 3. Not because they haven't tried to build healthy relationships, but because the healing intent hasn't been explicit in those relationships. Because the corrective experience requires a specific kind of consistency and a specific kind of presence that ordinary relationships, however good, don't always provide by default. And for some people, the answer is level 2. They have the narrative completely, they have real relationships in their life, but they've never built the somatic capacity to stay present when the activation hits, so the corrective relational experience keeps getting interrupted before the nervous system can absorb it. The three-level map is diagnostic. Look at where your work has been concentrated. Look at what's been underdeveloped. That's not a verdict. That's a direction. If you want to go further than this video can take you, the program in the description is structured to work at all three levels, not as theory, but as practice. The link is in the description and the pinned comment. Which of the three levels has most of your healing work been concentrated in? And what do you think has made the others harder to access? Here's what to hold from this. The work you've done is not wasted. Every hour of therapy, every book, every video, every moment of sitting with something difficult and trying to understand it. That is level 1, and level 1 is real. It gave you something that cannot be skipped, a narrative that makes the pattern make sense, a frame that locates the wound in an origin rather than in a character, a language for something that had no language before you found it. But the pattern doesn't live at level 1. It lives below the level of understanding, in the body, in the nervous system, in the relational expectations that were organized before you had words for any of it. And that's why the understanding, as complete as it became, didn't reach it. Not because you failed to understand deeply enough, because the understanding was pointing at the right territory from the wrong floor. What changes now is that you have the map. You know where the 3 levels are. You can see where your work has been and where it hasn't been yet. And that is not a small thing. That's the difference between repeating the same level more intensely and actually moving. The version of you that can sit with someone who loves you consistently and feel settled rather than suspicious and stop scanning for the catch, that version is not waiting for more understanding. That version is waiting for the body to learn what understanding already knows. And the body learns through practice, through relationship, through the accumulated experience of reaching and being met enough times with enough consistency that the nervous system slowly revises its oldest prediction. That revision is possible, not because it's easy, not because it's fast, but because the nervous system that learned the pattern is the same nervous system that can learn something different. Below the level of understanding, in the place where the pattern actually lives, that's where you're going. And now you know the way.